The world will little note, nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work, which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. To what extent is our future out of our control? I think Lincoln would argue that we have a great deal of power to decide the future in front of us. It's not out of our control. It's not cyclic. History is the result of the decisions of individuals. It's the result of the resolve of the people. These lines from the end of Gettysburg Address, I feel like, call us all to become part of that struggle, to choose a history that we want, choose the future that we want. Lincoln said, what are we going to do about this? We're going to resolve yet again to have a government of the people, and we're going to work. We're going to make sure that these lives were not in vain, that they were towards this better end. And it's inspiring. Hopefully you recognize the words. I didn't want to start with the beginning of the Gettysburg Address, because I think people hear that 7 years and they sort of zone out. But it's really one of the most powerful speeches of our country. Again, as a paraphrase, we highly resolve the government of the people shall not perish from this earth. Lincoln in no way saw the United States as this temporary sort of blip on the map of history. He saw America, as many other statesmen have seen it, as this beacon, this light that other countries could look to, this city on top of a hill. And he didn't see it going anywhere, but he knew that it would remain forever as long as people continued to spend their energy and be dedicated to the ideals and the propositions for which it stands. It's the resolution of the people that make government of the people possible. So it's in no way inevitable. It's in no way temporary. It's sustaining and lasting as long as the will of the people sustains it, which I think is the very opposite of this cyclic view of history. I've tried hard not to make these videos about politics. I taught government for 20 years. I've got a lot of strong opinions when it comes to politics. And I think that there's a possibility, not just a possibility, there's this need for people to be able to look at the partisan politics, the left versus right. Those are important arguments, but there's also things that join us together as a country that are also important, equally important, perhaps more important. And Abraham Lincoln, George Washington, these people that we celebrate on President's Day, which was yesterday, I'm a little late making the video, they point us towards, that greater level of patriotism that comes in seeing everyone in this country working together, working forward to sustain a government of the people. It's not going to work if it's just a government of half of us. It needs to be all of us working together. I think the government's extremely polarized, or not the government, the country, well, both, is extremely polarized at the moment. And there's a bunch of hateful rhetoric, a bunch of vitriol being thrown back and forth from both sides. This whole project with these YouTube videos in part is to distract myself from all that stuff that's going on, to try and think of things that are more important, things that are more useful, things that are not going to depress me at the end of the day. Um, and so looking towards those examples, the Gettysburg Address, I think, is a perfect example of something where both parties can look at it and say, yeah, this is what we believe in, this is what we're willing to fight for. And if you know me, you probably can already guess what I think about the partisan bickering that's going on right now. I don't need to tell you which side is right and which side is wrong. But I think a lot of people in America are getting frustrated and getting depressed about just the state of politics, and something that if it's government of the people, by the people, for the people, it's hard to look at what's happening now and say this is a reflection of who we are as a country. But it is. I mean, and it's not just the current administration. For the past many administrations, it's a reflection of what the people in our country want. And there's plenty of people in my life, people I respect, people who I think are intelligent, who look at what's happening right now and say, it's just not worth it. It's not worth getting pulled into that fight. It's not worth trying to follow all the partisan bickering back and forth. They figure that it's all going to sort of work itself out. It's all going to resolve itself. And so this question of, is it worth paying attention? To what extent am I going to pay attention? To what extent am I going to make my own views heard? They're really good questions. But I would posit, I would argue that that when Lincoln talks about the resolve that we need to have as a country in order to stay a country, in order to stay a government of the people, that resolve includes that partisan bickering that we're all getting sick and tired of right at the moment. That despite the fact that it's uncomfortable, despite the fact that it's hard, it's what we're all called to do right at this moment. And I'm not arguing for the left or for the right. I'm arguing for those patriots on both sides to come together and fight for a country that we can all feel proud of, a country that isn't depressing, And I think it's possible. I think that it's possible to reach across the aisle. And that political infighting at the moment can feel toxic. It can feel like it can throw me. It's been throwing me off. Like, I like to think I'm calm and relaxed most of the time, sort of laid back, and I start looking at the news, and it gets my heart racing, and I start getting angry, and there's definitely a part of me that wants to move away from the news and wants to think about other things, but at the same time, I think it's worth trying to find that balance between staying informed, staying active, and staying away from it to make sure that I'm acting the way that I want to act on a regular basis. I can't let the anger overwhelm me. I need to make an effort to find that balance and to keep pushing forward. I need to be resolved, And it's this whole project of making these videos, this question of whether these lessons that Merlin tried to teach Arthur made any difference at all. This question of, if history is cyclic, then what are we even doing? Are we just sort of waiting for everything to collapse and then we'll rebuild everything from the rubble? But I think Lincoln would argue, I think a lot of intelligent people would argue, yeah, there's a cycle to things. We should just wait this out and then see what we can make of what's left. But I don't think that would be Lincoln's argument. I think Lincoln would say, we need to have the resolve, we need to have the strength, we need to have the courage to keep fighting, to hold on to our ideals, to push forward. And I take comfort in that. Well, no, I don't actually. Comfort's the wrong word. It motivates me. It pushes me forward. It's not comfortable. This idea that if we want things to get better, or we're going to have to do something about it. On both sides of the political spectrum, there's people who I resent, that I think are doing it for the wrong reason. They're Machiavellian, they're power hungry, they're greedy, they're corrupt. You know, it's easy to find people like that all over the place on both sides of the political spectrum. But I think, again, on both sides of the spectrum, you can find those patriots, you can find those people fighting hard for what is right, those people who are not going to give up, those people who are firmly resolved, that will go down fighting, that will make an effort to keep our country together, to preserve this shining beacon for the rest of the world. And I want to be one of those people. Like, that sounds like the right path forward. I think Abraham Lincoln, I think George Washington were those people that reject cyclic history and say, you know, individuals can make a difference and have made a difference and are the only thing that's going to make a difference in the future. I think these questions, to what extent is the future out of our control? To what extent is history cyclic? To what extent do things need to fall apart before you can build it again? All of these questions have deeper questions underneath them. And I think the deepest question is, do we have free will? Do we have a choice in our future? And for me, that answer has to be yes. We have to have some sort of say in what happens next. And if that's true, then the fight becomes worthwhile. It becomes useful to see things as the future is going to be the results of the decisions that we all make as individuals today. And I wish I was smart enough to come up with a strong argument for free will. There have been plenty of books, plenty of much smarter people than me arguing for and against free will for centuries, for decades, for thousands of years. So I'm not going to be able to make a convincing argument for free will, especially in a 10-minute video. But I think that there is free will. It's more of a feeling than a logical conclusion. But I think a lot of things need that belief in free will as a foundation moving forward. I think it's hard to have courage without also having a conviction that free will is the thing. That's what I think Lincoln would say if he was here today.